everyone. Welcome to the demo of the diabetes dashboard. This is the HS content team, and we will give you an overview of what we've done so far and how we've accomplished what we've done. So we begin with our use case and the user we had in mind while we were designing this dashboard. So this is a population health dashboard, and we were thinking of a population health level analyst at a provider location, which probably has multiple facilities within the organization, and we have there are people who are interested in knowing and tracking metrics related to population health. So this analyst would be responsible for managing all of that data and sending out reports as needed. So this dashboard is something that can address that need and also help the analyst drill down and identify specific cohorts of patients who may be sent over to a care management program so that the appropriate interventions can be performed. So we've used Power BI to develop our dashboard, and the data that we're using for this dashboard is coming from Health Insight tables. And we now have Ray from the content team who will give you an overview of how we're accomplishing this. So over to you, Ray.
For our dashboard, we use Synthia to generate test data. Synthia is an open-source synthetic patient generator that models the medical history of synthetic patients, including encounter, diagnosis, procedure, lab results, with the values that we pick. Here is a sample of diabetes diagnosis codes that we use in our test data. Synthia can generate test data in FHIR, and we ingest Synthia-generated FHIR data to Health Insight. After we have data ready in Health Insight, we build cubes upon the data for further aggregation and analysis. We have 8 cubes built to collect data from Health Insight tables for our use cases. Here is the diagnosis cube that we built to collect information like diagnosis code, coding standard, diagnosis type, and encounter information associated with the diagnosis. And we also flagged that each diagnosis with whether it is for diabetes or hypertension for cohort analysis. And to feed data into the Power BI, we write several queries to try to display all the data from the cubes in one single view. The diagnosis view here I'm showing contains all the diagnosis fields that we're interested in, including diagnosis and associated encounter information. And we then use the Health Insight connector to connect these views to Power BI and build dashboards upon them. And that's how the content team feed data into Power BI. And I will hand it over back to Varun.
All right, thank you, Ray, for that overview. So now that you know what we're trying to do and how we've taken care of some of the things in the backend, it's time to look at the dashboard. So this is what the landing page or welcome page for the dashboard looks like. You have 7 tabs for diabetes management that you can see here, and you can click on any one of those to directly navigate to that respective page. Another helpful tip if you're a first-time user or are unfamiliar with this dashboard is this information icon right at the top. So if you click the icon, there's a pop-up which gives you some basic info that might be relevant to you as a user. It also gives you an overview of the population that is feeding into this dashboard. So we're only looking at patients from the ages of 18 to 85. We have them split into 3 categories called diagnosed, undiagnosed, and pre-diabetic. And then there's are the respective definitions for each of those. We look at A1C status on this dashboard. So this talks about some of the categories for those, depending on what range the A1C result falls into. And then there are some additional tips that will help a user navigate through the dashboard. So let's dive into it. The first tab we have is the summary tab. So for those who might not be very familiar with the diabetes measure, it's split into multiple submeasures. For this dashboard, we're looking at 4 of those. So hemoglobin A1C control, blood pressure control, retinal eye exam, and kidney health evaluation. And this summary page gives you an idea of what the compliance rate for each of those measures is. What that means is that we're looking at The percent what this shows you is the percentage of patients who meet the compliance criteria for A1C. And if you again hover over the information icon, it will give you an idea of what you are looking at. Moving on to the demographics tab. So here you can look at your total population, the age groups they fall into, and the numbers, the count of patients falling into each age group, and what percentage of the population that is. You can also see patient count by diagnosis status. So uh, out of the 13,403 patients that we are looking at through this dashboard, 77% have a diagnosis, but there are also 21% of patients who are undiagnosed, and um, we are defining undiagnosed patients as patients who have an elevated A1C level but do not have a corresponding diagnosis code. So this subset of the population might be of interest to a potential user, and they might want to dig into this further and see if these folks have missing information or they need to go in and see their doctor and get the appropriate tests done. The next tab on the dashboard is visits. So this is looking at for all the 13,403 patients, what is the total number of visit count? This includes emergency, inpatient, and outpatient visits. So this is the total across all three intervention visit types. And then this is also looking at all the facilities that are part of the provider group or the current organization. It is also possible to just look at the visits for a particular facility or a subset of those facilities. Next up is diagnosis and observations. So here we have the top 5 diabetes diagnoses by unique patient count. We also have the top 5 comorbidities by patient count. So we can see for most people who have a diagnosis, most patients who have a diagnosis of diabetes, chronic kidney disease, and hypertension are the two most prevalent comorbidities. Next up is medications. So here we are looking at the medications these patients are on, and then also highlighting uh, patients who have a diagnosis of diabetes but do not have any record of being on medication. So again, we feel that this is a relevant metric to call out. And this also means that the potential analyst who's using this can dig into these patients and see what's missing and what needs to be done to address this gap. We we are also looking at the top 5 RX norm diabetes classes by patient count. So these are RX norm drug classes, and you can see how many patients fall into each of those drug classes. And then on the right-hand side, we have patient count by RX norm class and medication. So this is where you can drill down into specific medications within the RX norm class. And finally, we come to the lab results tab. So one of the relevant lab tests for a diabetic patient is A1C. So that's what we focused on for this dashboard and this tab. So straight off the bat, we are calling out the number of patients who have not had an A1C test in the past 6 months. Again, general practice is to have your A1C blood test done every 6 months. So these patients, some of these patients might have had an A1C in the earlier in the year, but based on past 6 months from current date, they 12,000 of them did not. So it is important to call that out. And this information might be of interest to the user of this dashboard. We are also looking at the A1C results by facility. So you can see the month over month trend of A1C by facility. This is right now it's averaged by across all facilities, but you have the option of choosing. And that is it for our demo. Thank you.